What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. World Cup warm-ups are coming to our TV screens this weekend, which of course means we need to do a preview video. This one's going to be for Wales versus England, checking out the teams that have been announced, having a look through some selections, through some good picks, some bad picks, getting my initial reactions to the team, and finally, of course, giving a score prediction. If you enjoyed this style of video and you want to see more rugby content on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the channel and help support the smaller channels so that we can reach the most people as it gets towards the World Cup. Now, Wales versus England, as a Wales supporter myself, this is a match I look forward to every year in the Six Nations, and we get to be graced this year with another two fixtures of these two teams happening over the next 2 weeks. The first one happening in Wales this weekend, the next one happening in Twickenham next weekend. So two big games for these teams. While they won't be meeting each other in the pool stages, they are still odds-on favourites to be one of the two teams that gets out of their respective pools. So we could well be seeing this matchup in the quarter-finals of the World Cup. So both teams need to take this seriously. This fixture is something that could see them actually get knocked out of the World Cup in about a month's time or so when we get round to the quarterfinals. So starting out then talking about the Wales team, as they are the home team. Big changes coming in this week, not what I expected at all. 5 debutants named for Wales. Now, you'd be hoping that Gatland, this close to the World Cup, had settled his squad down a bit, but of course over the last few months we've had so much news about their 50 cap rule getting reduced, players not happy with the pay caps. Alan Wynne-Jones, Tipperick have gone, Navidi's gone, Ken Owens has gone, Liam Williams is playing away now. There's lots of big information about injuries, retiring, people moving to different clubs and whether they'll be eligible to play. So still a lot of concerns for this Wales team, especially after a Six Nations that again didn't really go their way. It's beginning to feel a little bit like Gatland has sat down with the WRU to watch Star Wars The Last Jedi recently, and just trying to kill off all the old players.
Let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
But it is nice to see some youth in the team. Unfortunately, of course, with youth comes a bit of inexperience. So there's a lot of low cap players here, so we will have a bit of a run through them as we go. So starting out in this front row, Domachowski, Ryan Elias and Azirati coming in that front row. Now, I've not kept up a lot with the URC as it's been going on. Both props play over for Cardiff as far as I'm aware, and they both have really cool names. Domachowski and Azirati. It sounds like superbike manufacturers. If you had a hooker whose surname was Kawasaki, you'd have a proper little MotoGP going on there. Maybe I should probably segue in something about how it's very like it because, of course, you need to have a lot of power as a prop, similar to a motorbike, and the drive to go forwards, like poetry, as if I can make this up on, on the spot. But looking forward to see how they get on. Scrummaging for Wales in the Six Nations, absolutely not the best, so there's no reason to, not give these lads a shot this close to the World Cup. If you ever want to, put your name on an international team sheet against England at home 1 month out from a World Cup, now is the time to just get up and be a bit of a shining star there. In the hooker position, though, Ryan Elias, I've said before on the channel, Ryan Elias for me is by far nowhere near the top tier choice. I've been picking Ken Owens and Dewi Lake over Ryan Elias every day of the week. Line outs have never been very good for him, especially in the last 2 years. I don't think I've seen Ryan Elias basically throw a straight line out in. So it really removes a platform from you. It's an area of concern is the line out for Wales, and I'm sure Steve Borthwick's England will be paying very, very close attention to that. Speaking of the line out then, in the lock department, David Jenkins goes in alongside Will Rowlands, who is slowly fighting to get that cap marker up, currently on 23 caps, I believe, Will Rowlands. Their new cap rule was 25 to be eligible and all that stuff, so he's trying to get in those extra caps, make sure he's eligible. Of course, Jake Ball and Corey Hill, they've gone over to Japan now. Alan Wynne's retired. Man, we're running out of locks in Wales, so you've got to be able to keep them in the sides. Will Rowlands is one of those players a lot of people really like, and I enjoy the style of play that he has. The only thing that's just always got to me about Will Rowlands is just the amount of penalties. Just needs to cut out. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Eben Etzebeth a few years back. A bit of a monster once he gets going. He can have a good game, but the penalty count for me always just undercuts, any good work that he does immediately just gives 50 metres back to the other team. If you cut out the penalties, I think Will Rowland's actually a really, really solid all-round player. So if you can just keep his temperament under control, make sure you get out of a ruck, don't get pinned in, make sure you're not the one holding onto the ball, make sure you just follow the rules. I think hopefully you can have a good game. And then in the back row, Christ Shanuza goes in alongside of Jack Morgan getting his captaincy and Aaron Wainwright filling in at 8. Now I did see Gatlin point out that they are basically going to be giving every game a different captain in this World Cup warm-ups to give everyone a shot of standing out. And probably not a bad move. Jack Morgan, I believe, has done some captaincy work as well with the under-20. So nice to see him getting a shot now with the actual Wales team as well. One of the things, though, across this 1 to 8 for me, just your general caps. Quite low, right? You've got your 2 debutants at props. David Jenkins still low. Will Rowlands is in the low 20s. Ryan Elias is in the low 30s. Aaron Wainwright still in quite low 30s. And Shanuza and Jack Morgan still quite low as well. In that front 5, I did try and add it up very quickly. I think it's about 62 caps between the front 5, which is absolutely not a lot, especially as you lead up towards as a World Cup. So, youth and inexperience, low caps, but sometimes it can come with high energy and the hunger, and you can throw off other teams by not really knowing how you're going to be able to play in this game. So I'm looking forward to see how they get on, and of course we'll dissect it a bit more before we get into next week's game back against England in Twickenham. In the halfback partnership, Gareth Davis goes in alongside of Sam Costello, getting his another shot at fly half, who is a player I do enjoy. They're still trying to work out the fly half, who's going to come in second choice behind Dan Bigger, I think, in terms of your fly half shirt. Sam Costello is a good player. The only thing for me is you just need to be able to give him time. You need to have players around him that are actually going to give him the ball with a bit of space and a bit of room to work in. Sam Costello is one of those players for me. If you don't give him enough time and the opponents swarm him, you can really feel like he's beginning to panic and not knows what to do. Sometimes it can get a bit erratic. Needs the team to back him, give him some time on the ball, let him run the game from his own position, and hopefully he can have a good game. In the centre partnership, a new debutant coming in here, Max Llewellyn going in alongside of George North. Looking forward to see how Max gets on. Playing over in Gloucester now. I always thought he was playing at Cardiff. I believe currently he's at Gloucester. So looking forward to see how these lads match up. Now Mason Grady's also on the bench, which is nice because I always wanted to see a bit more from Mason Grady. I don't think we got to see enough from him in that Six Nations. So looking forward to see him hopefully come on at some point. I might even like him to come on for George North and have, 2 of the lower cap players play alongside each other, give them a shot to show off in this game. And then finally, in that back 3, Rio Dyer on the left wing, Rhys Zammit on the right wing, and Lee Halfpenny in your fullback. So that's where your more experiences are saying that Rio Dyer is still quite low on caps, but bar the sort of incidents he had in the Six Nations where a pass went a little bit too far for him, or a bad pass, or dropping the ball. It's, youngsters making mistakes, but he's still actually a very good player. Was certainly one of the more attacking threats Wales actually had in that Six Nations. So nice to see him still in there. Halfpenny will be making his 100 caps in this game as well, so he's managing to make that milestone before he just inevitably retires before the World Cup. Seems to be happening for the rest of the players. So, it's an okay 1 to 15. It's by no means going to be your first choice. You're not going to see this team as your World Cup final team. Maybe you will. Maybe everyone else will have retired by then. But looking forward to see how they get on against this England side. And then finally, in the replacements bench, Elliot Dee, Nicky Smith, and Henry Thomas, another debutant coming in there. Now, I'm looking forward to see this coming on. Nicky Smith feels like he hasn't had a lot of Wales game time recently. Elliot Dee, I would have starting ahead of Ryan Elias, but I assume they're going to go for a bit more of a second half sort of reinforcement side to it. I would have liked to have seen Elliot Dee maybe start this game alongside of 2 debutants and maybe sort of help them out a little bit more along the way, because Ryan Elias, for me, I think with some of the issues he might end up damaging the confidence of your uncapped players. That might be one switch I would have liked to have seen. In the rest of the replacement forwards then, Ben Carter and Tane Plumtree, another new name for me, making his debut as well, hopefully at some point in this game. Ben Carter, again, another lad I want to see come on, have some real game time before we get to that World Cup. Like I've already said, lock department, a little bit of a worry still at the minute in Wales. And then in the replacement backs, Thomas Williams, Dan Bigger, and Mason Grady. So if the game's, go into absolute hell, you can chuck on Thomas Williams and Dan Bigger. Got a wealth of experience between them. Replace that halfback partnership probably quite early on in that second half. It's not going your way. The scoreboard's not on your side. And then Mason Grady, like I said, I'm looking forward to see a bit more from him. So across the team entirely then, it's sort of the team you expect to see. It's not a full guns blazing team trying to get those new lads in. It's a bit of a shame it's coming this close to a World Cup warm-up when you watch some of the Rugby Championship games. how much those teams seem to be settled in who's going to be starting. And here we are 1 month out, still having new lads making their debut, trying to, get themselves into the team. So not really a set team at the minute, but looking forward to see how they get on. Moving on to England then, with their fancy new graphic that they've got out for this one, a little bit more colourful than some of the other ones. Now, England will go into this one probably feeling pretty confident. They managed to win this fixture in the Principality in the Six Nations, 20 points to 10. So mixing up their team a little bit from what you might typically see in the World Cup as well. It's probably going to be a theme we'll see throughout all of the teams. So I've got to try and rearrange my brain a little bit trying to read this one, because they've got some of the players in slightly different order. But starting out in this front row, Ellis Genge as captain, Jamie Blamire in the hooker position, and Will Stewart in that tight head prop position. Now, this is a strong front row. This is going to really put some of the debutants in Wales under pressure. It's really going to make the set piece a bit of a clinical area in this game, I think. I think if England can take charge of the scrums and the line outs and really put Wales under pressure, it could be an awfully long day. I think Ellis Genge is a really good call there as well. Ellis Genge's scrummaging recently as well has been pretty top tier as well. I've been really enjoying him throughout the Six Nations. Going up against uncapped players, going to be a really fierce fight. Will Stewart at tight head was interesting. I did think they would stick with Kyle Sinclair for tight head, but Kyle Sinclair's on the bench for this one, so maybe they're thinking bring on a second half, a strong scrummager just to try and not ease up on the pressure at scrum time. In the lock department, David Ribbans goes in alongside of George Martin, so we won't have any Itoje or Ezekwe, as we've had a couple of different players playing in the lock position recently. David Ribbans is a name that's slowly sort of growing into this England side a bit. I'm looking forward to see a bit more from him. The line-out situation will be very interesting for Wales, with how down they are on locks at the minute. So I think it's a very contestable area. It'll be an area for these lads to really show off in. In the back row, Lewis Ludlam, Tom Pearson and Alex Dombrandt in that number 8 shirt, who was a player that came in with such big talking points. Everyone was really looking forward to him just smashing onto the scene, and he's certainly a good ball carrier, but I haven't seen numerous games from him where I've thought, wow, Alex Dombrandt's the guy smashing this game open, whereas Lewis Ludlam actually had a number of very, very good games. He's actually a much more technical player than I was aware of when he first got onto the scene. And he's a real nightmare in terms of the breakdown situation. So nice to see him still in there. It's a strong 1 through 8. It's one of the areas that's probably going to be weaker for Wales. It's going to be the forward pack. While they've still got some strong backs, this looks to me like a stronger forward pack from the England team, so Wales will have to watch out. In the halfback partnership, Marcus Smith goes in alongside Danny Care. Danny Care's just still there. Must be on his 300th cap by now. He just always comes back, considering how many new and younger scrum halves they've got coming in. You think they'd want to get some more game time in. Danny Care back in the side. Marcus Smith at 10. Of course, they've struggled a little bit with Farrell at 10, Farrell at 12, Marcus Smith at 10. Who would go in there? They've even got George Ford and Henry Slade on the bench. They're two lads that could even look at that 10 shirt. Marcus Smith going at 10, I think, is nice. And I think he'll unleash these backs a little bit more. I quite like this back setup for England here. Joe Marchant and Guy Porter making up the centre partnership for this one. Two lads that can pick nice lines. So someone like Marcus Smith, you've always got to, just got to be involved with the tackle. You can't let him run. You can't give him space. But he's one of those sort of players who always looks to try and maybe go himself. If he can get a cheeky pass off to one of those two lads, they do cut really nice lines. So getting through a defensive line suddenly causes real nightmares for any sort of defence. And then in the back three, Joe Thockenham-Singer and Max Malins will make up the wings, with Freddie Stewart in that fullback position. Now, Freddie Stewart, very good under the high ball for so many games. He did have, I think, one game in the Six Nations that really didn't go his way in terms of high ball. But for a very high percentage of games, you would put good money on him to win a contest in the air. I've no doubt kicking could be something we get to see quite a lot of in this game. Wales's backs can sometimes have a lot of issues with high balls and stuff. I would certainly rate Freddie Stewart's being able to get under the high balls a little bit better. So kicking might be a tactic we see utilised in this game from England in this one. But overall, 1 to 15, like again, as we're probably going to say across this weekend, not a World Cup final team by any means. A nice little sprinkling of some lower cap players in there with some higher cap players. I think this is a more sort of consistent team across the board, whereas Wales feels like they're a little bit more all over the place. They've got some low caps, they've got no caps players. They've got a couple of higher cap players. It seems to be a little bit all over the place. I think this is a little bit more of a consistent team, so I'm liking what they've gone for here. Quickly, in terms of the replacements then, Theo Dan, Bevan Rodd and Kyle Sinclair were making up that front row replacement in the second half, alongside of Johnny Hill and Tom Willis as the replacement forwards this one. So 5-3 for England. I don't think a lot of teams teams will gain a lot from doing the driving more tries in these warm-up games. They'll want to be playing a little bit more expansive playing out. So 5-3 is absolutely what you'd probably expect. Looking forward to Johnny Hill coming on. I imagine he'll come on for David Ribbans maybe and keep George Martin on, give him a bit more game time in that second half. And then the replacement backs, Jack Van Poortvliet, George Ford and Henry Slade. So, a little bit of bolstering there in form of George Ford and Henry Slade if the game's not going your way. A few more caps, a bit more experience just to try and keep that team going in that second half. Jack Van Poortvliet, I would be starting him. I don't know what Danny Kerr is going to bring to this game for a coaching standpoint that you don't already know. He's probably going to be in the World Cup squad. He's probably going to be playing some of the bigger games. He's a very high-capped player for England. You know what his skill set is. You know what he does. I'm not really sure what you learn from, chucking him in a game like this. Jack Van Poortvliet still low on cap, still got a lot to show off. I would probably be starting him for this one and giving him some game time again against some tier 1 sides. England still have a pool with some teams that can cause upsets. Argentina are looking okay at the minute. Japan, we've seen them in past World Cups. They can cause an upset against big teams. I think having extra players on that are lower on caps for more game time in these warm-up games would be a better move for me, but that's what they've gone for. So what do we think in terms of a score prediction for this one? A little bit of a trickier call. I think the England team actually feels a little bit more set, I think, than the Wales team. The Wales team feels a little bit more experimental and just sort of seeing where players are going to go. I'm kind of tempted to lean towards England for this one. Maybe not by a lot. I think both teams will want to play expansive and actually try and show off and practice some different things as we lead toward this World Cup. But I think England will be, feeling confident in this one. They won this exact fixture in the Six Nations as well. I'm going to say an England win. And I'm going to say by 3. I'm going to go low. I'm going to see how that gets on. And then, of course, we have the reverse fixture for this next week over in Twickenham, where I've got a strange feeling like I might see Wales play a very similar team and England might actually put on the really big team because it's playing home at Twickenham. That's going to be my sort of prediction for teams next week. But we'll see how that pans out. If you enjoyed this one today, guys, remember to drop it a like. Drop down in the comment section your thoughts on the teams along with your score predictions, and make sure you are getting all of your predictions up on the Super Brew that is currently up for these World Cup warm-up games. There's so many games going on across this warm-up. It's so much fun to get involved with. I'll see you all next time, guys. Bye-bye.